Hello YouTube, welcome back to Lamine's Legacy episode number 13. I'm recording the commentary aspect of it first this time, so I'll match up the highlights and stuff after I'm done speaking. So I don't know what necessarily is going to be shown altogether, but it's going to be centered around Champs highlights and Champs rewards. But yeah, I want to talk about a couple of different things today. We're going to talk about Champs, how that went for us this week. We're going to talk about state of gameplay. We're going to talk about what's happening in the community at the moment in regards to the potential nerf of or removal of goalkeeper movement. We're going to talk about the screen promo. Talk about a lot of things, but I want to start with ultimately what's going on in the community at the moment with the sort of goalkeeper movement. Now, I'm personally a fan of goalkeeper movement, and I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of skill gap. So there seems to be online, especially through X, and where you can quote reply and it's a response to the EAFC Direct page. There seems to be a real disconnect between people's opinions on what a skill gap is, and I don't think many people have defined skill gap correctly or even using it correctly. So to me, and obviously this is an opinion, I'm not stating this to be absolute fact, but to me a skill gap is anything that ensures that better players have a better chance of beating worse players. Okay, so it's something you can do to increase your chances of winning. Okay, now not just increase your chances of winning. There's other caveats to it which I'll cover soon. But I'm of the opinion that goalkeeper movement is a skill gap. Okay, it encourages a skill gap. It contributes to a skill gap. I don't think it's a skill gap reducer. I'll talk to you a little bit about why. I think for something to increase the skill gap, it has to do a couple of things. I think first of all, it has to be something that a user has to do. Okay, it has to be something they mechanically have to do, which with goalkeeper movement, you do. You have to either double tap in order to move them, or you have to move the right analog stick in order to move them. So it requires user input, and that's the first thing, or first criteria, I think, for something to be a skill gap, or contribute to a skill gap. Then you also need the element of mental aspect, okay? So when you move a goalkeeper, or you perform a mechanic that is a skill gap contributor, you have to think about how to do it, because simply knowing how to do it isn't enough. Okay, when I move my goalkeeper, I have to think about why and where do I want to move him. So I don't move my goalkeeper when someone just enters my half. It would be ridiculous to do so. Okay, so therefore it implies that there is a correct way to do it and an incorrect way to do it, which means that I can take myself and I can take another player and I may be able to use the mechanic better than they can, or vice versa, okay? Because you have to make correct decisions when using the mechanic. So, talking about it more specifically to like the real context it's used in the game, if you are through on goal against me, I will move my keeper. Now, against average players, low-skilled players, that will stop me from conceding goals. And the reason it stops me from conceding goals is because you don't have the composure to deal with it. Okay, you don't know how to handle someone moving their keeper. Now, it's not difficult. All you have to do if you are the attacker is have composure. You just need an awareness of, okay, I'm going to stop running. I can walk. I can wait. I'm not just going to rush the shot. Okay, you score so many free goals from people moving keepers way too early. You also score goals from people trying to move keepers, but they move them too late and it doesn't matter. But once you understand the timings mechanically and mentally, you can get good results from moving it, and you can also give away goals from doing it. And so to me, it is a skill gap contributor. It does contribute to a bigger skill gap within the game. Now, I appreciate that if you are a casual player, or a subpar player, or a below average player, you finally getting through on goal makes you feel like you're entitled to the goal at that point, right? There should be nothing I can do at that point to stop you from scoring because you've done the hard work, is essentially how it's been interpreted. But that isn't true, not within the game, nor is it true within real life as well. You know, in real life, do we just break the line and all of a sudden the keeper has to stand still? No, right? Like, sure, breaking a defense, getting through on goal, dribbling past someone should be rewarded and, has took skill and talent. But you haven't completed the job. The job's not done till the ball's in the back of the net. And if you aren't willing to learn how to ensure you have the best chance of doing that, then ultimately you should be penalised and punished. When it comes to moving the keeper, I'm sure most good players to average players will agree with this. when you play against someone who thinks they're good at moving the keeper, it's practically a free win. You score 2 or 3 goals extra a game that you wouldn't have scored otherwise, even on the old FIFAs where you didn't have these ridiculously high scoring games. Because it was so easy. I'll be on an angle that's impossible to score from, and they'll just move. They'll just move to the other side of the goals. Okay, I'll go near post, thank you very much. Easy. I think we run into really dangerous territory when we start saying that annoying mechanics are reducing the skill gap. I don't think that's true. A mechanic can be annoying and increase the skill gap. A mechanic can be annoying and reduce the skill gap. However, a mechanic can also just be annoying, and a mechanic can just increase or decrease the skill gap. They don't have to be both. If you think about something like second man press, I don't think many people like second man press in the game, although it's not spoken about too much. But I would argue that that's an example of something that is a skill gap reducer because of the way in which you have to second man press. So in order to second man press, you just hold R1 or RB if you're on Xbox, right? It's the bumper. You don't have control over where the second man press is, what movements he makes, what lanes he cuts. It just follows someone around. You don't have user input over that. You just hold a button, and you can do it all over the pitch, essentially, when you're out of possession. To me, that's not a skill gap because you don't have any thought behind the intention. You don't have any control behind the intention. With a goalkeeper movement, it's entirely different. You have control over it. You can move him a little bit. You can move him a lot. You can move him far post, near post. You can bring him forward with triangle, although that's a bit of a different conversation. You also have to think about when to do it. I've moved the keeper and I've given away goals. I've moved the keeper and I've saved goals. I've moved the keeper from quite far out and then moved him back and I've played mind games. It's a skill gap increase. It's a skill gap contributor. So I'm in massive disagreement with those that say otherwise. And I can't believe I've spent 7 minutes talking about goalkeeper movement. But in line with this whole community aspect and the feedback side of things, I want to continue on the topic because I think it's crazy that we're here in this state in which EA are what appears to be using public forums to determine the direction of the game. In my opinion, if we're going to go down this route, then we need a variety of modes that can separate us and the player base even further. So if you are someone that just wants essentially what people are referring to as a 2-button game, which to my understanding just means you have one button for passing and tackling, you have one button for shooting, the game becomes nothing more than that, then I believe that there should be a playlist where that's available. I don't agree with it, but there should be a playlist where that's available, and people that believe in, the lack of mechanics leading to a better game should be able to play in it. But I also think you need modes in which you stop catering to poor players. Now, in any game, in any title, the majority of players are rubbish, right? It's just how it is, especially... well, I'm not even going to say especially, but if you think about how the way that the gaming world works, you have a bunch of teenagers who, attend school and then come home and play a lot. It's their hobby. Majority of those will be decent players to below average players. Some will be really good, right, as they're spending a ton of time on the game. And then you have like your adults, so to speak, not to be condescending to the teenagers, but you have your adults. Some of those are good because they've had hobbies throughout their entire life in video games. They've played the series for over a decade. But most of those will regress. They were better at 16 and 18 than they are now at 24 because they just move on with their life. They spend more time at work. They spend more time with in their relationship, in their other hobbies, that they just don't understand the game the way they used to when they were playing it, many more hours a week. And obviously, the majority of the player base, whether you like it or not, are players that barely play the game in comparison to the rest of the time they spend doing things. And yeah, of course, if you're not spending time on the game, you're not learning the game, you're not good at the game. But making sure that those players stand a chance against hardcore, dedicated, experienced players, I think is troubling. Because what's the point in a game if you're not playing to win? And what's the point in playing to win if anything that you've done, either from an experience or skill set standpoint, doesn't count? Right? It's like, to me, that just doesn't make sense. It defeats the purpose of gaming in general. a game is there to be won, right? And doing what you can to limit winning or limit the probability of winning to fall to the better player just seems backwards to me. Like, I think in the long term it hurts, especially hurts their bottom line. I mean, at the moment, you can essentially pay for points or coins. I know points is the only thing that lines their pockets, but you can pay for points, which can pay for better players, which can essentially get you the odd win here and there. That goes away if the game's just, there's nothing to separate you. If there's zero things you can do to separate you from another player, then what's the point in even playing the game altogether? And if there's no point playing the game altogether, what's the point in spending on the game? I think it's really, really dangerous. Really, really dangerous, to be honest. I think they just need to... I think they need to take a step back. And I know we've asked for quite some time for the community to be able to communicate with EA consistently, thoroughly, for them to listen and take on board feedback and advice. But I think it's a case of we can't be trusted. I think it's a case of EA have to put their foot down and decide the game that they want to make. Who are they catering towards? But honestly, come out and say that. Let's say it with your chest. We want a game that is inclusive, and therefore we're reducing skill gap mechanics. Or we want a competitive game, so you either learn to play or you don't moan. Either approach is fine, but I think they need a very clear stance on the game that they're trying to make. Because regardless of which side that they choose, the opposite side then has two options. You can play the game and you can shut up, or you can move on to a different game, different franchise, etc. If you look at some of the most successful games in the world, they're not really console games, but I don't think that necessarily is important. But if you look at League of Legends, you look at World of Warcraft. Yeah, I don't know if that actually involves any sort of competition, but if you look at CS:GO, if you look at, I guess, Warzone, I don't think it's really that successful, but if you look at Warzone, everything, there's a clear intent within the game, especially when you talk about Counter-Strike and you talk about League of Legends. They're made as competitive games, Valorant's another one. There's no identity crisis in those games. You know what you're signing up for. You are playing a competitive game. With EA and FIFA, or FC, whatever you want to call it, I think it's always been stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's never really been obviously on one side. I mean, maybe like in FIFA 12, FIFA 13, I know there was a competitive scene, but there was really limited mechanics in that sense. But I think, yeah, over the last couple of years, they found themselves smack bang in the middle. You can play the game with hardly any high skill mechanics. I'm just going to use last year as obviously it still had the green timing and things like that. Last year, or all of the years really, you could play by simply making ground passes, through balls. You could click standing and sliding tackles. You could simply whip a corner in. You could go short. You could do all of these things at a real base level, but then you could do the high skilled version of those things. You could do the quick corners where you'd flick your analog stick instantly, whip it in, and you doing the header. You could green time your shots. You could do first time through balls. You could do precision shooting, which I know still exists, but mechanics had like sort of tiers to them. Okay, yeah, anybody can come in and click shoot, but who can actually time the shot to be a green time, right? That was like a skill differentiator. They've removed that this year. I didn't really think it was a problem to remove timed finishing, but I do like that there's something to differentiate normal shooting to a more advanced style of shooting, so to speak. And I do think that you need something like that. I'm a big fan of precision shooting. I use it. I do think it's significantly better, and it gives me what I like, which is accountability for my inputs. Right, when I shoot, if I hit the corner flag, I know bad thumb positioning. That's something I need to work on. Technique's not there. Right, when I hit a difficult angle and it still goes in, I know it's because I'm on precision. I've actually angled it perfectly. I'm rewarded for using that mechanic in the way that it's intended to. Right. What I don't like is essentially just click and shoot and hoping for the best, which I feel like traditional shooting kind of is. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at on the whole community stuff. I think we through the age of skill-based matchmaking, we've allowed way too many low-skill players to sit there and think that they are much better than they are. Look at the two-box epidemic in Call of Duty. Like you literally have people saying, "Oh, you're only getting those kills because you're in a bot lobby," and you may or may not have seen those TikToks of players putting them in two-box lobbies and they can't even get a kill. And it's like, see, you are the two-box. Like, I'm trying to match you. I'm not afraid of you. I'm trying to match you. And I think it's like that with FIFA too. I don't think we've completely hid people's skill because we have a division in Rivals, we have a rank in Champs, but I do think people honestly think that they are significantly better than they are, and coping with, oh, he just beat me because of player movement, or keeper movement. He just beat me because of a player lock, etc. Is just such a cope, to be honest. It just shows a real lack of accountability and just a real lack of insight into why they didn't win. I don't think I've ever had a game won or lost by keeper movement, of all things. I mean, I might have missed a couple of chances and the guy went on to win, but it was probably a 50-50 game anyway. It was probably either ended up in my favour or his favour as the better player. But it wouldn't have been a direct result of the keeper movement. And even if it was, good, right? I mean, that's what a skill gap is. I didn't successfully move my keeper, he did, for example, right? It's about taking your chances. It's a football game at the end of the day with it to score goals, and if you don't take your chances, then you can't expect to win. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping a track and keeping an eye on how that moves over the next sort of couple of weeks. But it's not a good sign, and I actually feel for EA. I don't think it's EA's fault whatsoever. I actually think it's the community's fault. I can't believe 16 minutes talking about that. But yeah, I think it was important to have that conversation. Please leave a comment down below if you do end up watching this far. Give your thoughts and opinion on it. At the end of the day, they are just opinions. Even if something I've said comes across as maybe rude or condescending, I don't mean it to be, but that is where I stand. And if you have a difference of opinion, I'd love to hear it. We can have a civil conversation either through the comment section or I can address it in another video. It'd be great to try and get some viewer interaction. But yeah, then I'll move on to Champs. So Champs for us this week was a 12-3 finish. So we've had a 14, 2 11s, and a 12. Now, obviously, the 14 we know at this point was fake. You had open matchmaking, which meant that form wasn't a thing. That's how we secured the 14. Then we had 2 11s, which, I mean, I don't consider 11 a great finish. I think it's a good finish. I don't think there's any problem with it, especially for my skill level. I think I am around 11 wins. I would say I will get 11 more than any other rank. So, I think it's on the money for my skill level. But I didn't have an enjoyable time playing, I seem to be of this caliber where I can get close to 10-1, it'll be around 9-1, 8-1, and then I just crumble. Like I find that I just get in games where the skill is too close. Like me and my opponent are too equally skilled, and I don't seem to come out on the good side of enough of them, which was slightly different in this game. So, last week I went from 9-1 to 9-4 to finish on 11, right? So from 9-1 to 9-4 is 3 losses on the bounce, then 2 wins on the bounce. So that's not really ideal, right? You don't want to be 9-1 and then lose 3. Like, that's just ridiculous. But it happened. I lost to better players, and that is what it is. This week I was 9-1, and then I went 9-2, and I thought, oh, it's happening again. You lose tight games, you lose close games, you just think, oh, come on. Like, I'd rather, if I'm going to finish on 11, I'd rather go 8-4. I'd rather get to 8 wins by having 4 losses than get to 8 wins and then lose 4 games, for example. I'd rather just play slightly easier games, of course, and get at the same place than take the hard route there. Like, why do I want to go 9-1 and then I have to lose 3 games on the bounce, right? It's just not enjoyable. It's through my own fault, right? My own lack of skill, so to speak, but not enjoyable. This week we had it slightly different, from 9-1 to 9-2. Then we hit a little bit of a bounce back and we finished 12-3. 12-3 for me, I think, is a really respectable rank. It's rank 3 overall. You could have got 13, I suppose rank 4, right? Like, you could get 13, 14, and 15. So there's 3 better ranks than what we achieved. Yeah, did we do anything different this week from a gameplay perspective? No. We won a penalty shootout, which was maybe the difference between last week's. Finishing on 11 last week, 12 this week. But yeah, I don't think there was anything different. This is sort of the skill level we're at the moment. Probably won't improve too much. Probably won't decrease too much. It is what it is. The rewards this time for me were better than last week. So if you've been watching some of these videos, you'll know we've had quite a bit of pack luck, which is very rare for me. So I'm hoping it's the content creator cheese or something. But last week we got practically nothing. The week before that we packed Rafinha and Donnarumma, made 400k. That was amazing. And then this week, through our 3x86 pack, I believe it's a triple walkout pack from Champs, we managed to pack Lamine Yamal, somebody random, maybe like a Gabriel, and then the Scream hero, Peter Crouch. Now, obviously Lamine Yamal is a big pull for us, but it was tradable. If it was untradeable, then obviously I would have sold the one that we have, and I would have basically put up a graphic and like text on the streams and on the videos to showcase the goals and assists. But because it was a tradable card and I don't really have that like sentimental value towards first own cards, I thought it's best to just sell, and then we can keep this card going. We can keep all the stats the same until he does get a better card, which based on his form and his attitude in real life, I don't know if that'll be anytime soon. But yeah, we obviously pack him out and Crouch. I think we made 200k from those two players, roughly. I think maybe 180, 170 after tax. I just sold because, I do oversell as soon as I get my Champs rewards. I don't really try and find optimal market times. But I think I was like 24 hours away from selling Crouch for like 100k. I don't know if it was a pump and dump through TikTok. I don't know if he's leaked to be 99 pace with the Scream upgrades, but yeah, I sold him and like 12 hours later he was double the price, which, it would have been nice to get an extra 50k, but it's not really a bother. But yeah, really nice rewards. Cannot complain, cannot fault it. We've had some good luck recently on the account. Most luck I think I've had in years, maybe genuinely ever. So it's really nice and refreshing. We keep building our coin balance. Still trying to think about what we want to do. I've got the real urge to go Barca past and present mostly, not entirely, but mostly. Just because Alba and Busquets are out, are they going to be a waste of fodder? Maybe. But I feel like it would be cool to reunite Iniesta, Xavi and Busquets. It's the first time, maybe since FIFA 12, maybe even ever. I don't have a ton of memories of FIFA 12. That you can use that midfield in Ultimate Team and they're good enough, right? So I think that would be really cool, that midfield combined with Jordi Alba at the back, Yamal in the team. I'd go Messi, bring Messi in up front. Yeah, I think it would be fun, and it's something I'm looking to do. Don't quite have the coins, but seeing if we can make it work over the next couple of weeks, and it would be cool to take the series in that direction. If that's something that you agree with or have thoughts and opinions on, then please again leave a comment, let me know. It would be really interesting to hear your thoughts. At 23 minutes, I think. Don't really know what else there was to talk about. Obviously, I completely babbled on about the community, keeper movement, skill gap. The gauntlet. I have to give praise to EA for the gauntlet. I won't. I tell you what, I'll actually leave the gauntlet for the next video because I'll upload Benzema, unlocking Benzema, the packs that came with it. We'll leave that for the next episode, but I will wrap up by talking about the 85x87s. We've done a couple of those. We were able to do 5 on the first day, which I think was the most you can do in 24 hours. And I think since we've maybe done another 6 or 7 packs, definitely encourage people to get them done if you have the 83s in your club. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to anyone who has to buy every 83. I think their market value is about 1,000 coins right now. So to pay 9k for the pack, I think you need an 86 to break even. I think you need an 86 at current market prices, which is more than possible. I did have a streak where I think I had like 3 packs that to walk out, which kind of sucked. But I've also picked up some 87s in there too. But yeah, I think you're looking at an 86 to break even if you buy every 83. But I think it is good for those people that want to build up some fodder for SBCs. We'll use any sort of rewards and 83s that we pack through packs, etc. in those upgrades as long as they remain out. I was going to talk about the Scream team as well, but I don't think there's really a need to. We haven't packed anyone huge, so I don't think there's a need. But there was a clear, I guess, increase in the player quality within this promo compared to the 2 we've had. Like the the meta cards like Liao and Vinny, like those are a cut above. You know, they're really, really good cards. Di Natale, another one from the Heroes. And it looks like Team 2 is shaping up to be ridiculous. We have a leaked Rashford SBC. We have I think a Dembele impact. Yeah, crazy, crazy stuff. Crazy, crazy stuff. Which I guess means that we'll have maybe 2 weeks of a relatively boring promo, and then we'll have Black Friday stuff. So yeah, that's sort of where the game's at the moment. I would really appreciate if those of you that have watched the video this far could maybe subscribe, leave a like, comment. Even if you just comment anything, you know, just boost the algorithm, help a growing channel out. If you don't like anything I said, you know, ridicule me for it. I don't mind. And yeah, thanks for watching the video. Like as I said, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it if you don't mind. I'll see you in episode 14, which will hopefully be no later than Friday this week. So see you in the next one.